Finding an oyster could be easy, but the pearl is the rare commodity. If you never seen a pearl, if you don't know what a pearl look like and you ran across one, if somebody told you that was a pearl, would you believe that to be a pearl? Would you take care of it and treasure that pearl like it should be? Or would you put it next to the rest of your belongings that may not be as valuable because you don't understand what you really have? We all have a purpose. We all have a journey. Everyone's journey, everyone's purpose is different. They're all individualized. Some journeys and purposes are a little rare than others. And sometimes people around you may question, why he? Why she? Why not me? But we are all different. So I'm interviewing Lloyd Sams, and he's gonna tell you who he is, what he's here to do, and why he's here. So, Lloyd, can you tell us, who are
you? Well, thank you for that wonderful introduction, RoShawn. I am unapologetically, unabashedly the Son of God. There are many sons of God and daughters of Zion. Again, my name is Lloyd Joshua Sams, and when I would go into certain Baptist churches in the South, as a person from Texas, in the South of the United States, they would say, Yeshua. I would say, no, my name is Joshua. And then I would meet Africans from Africa, from Nigeria and West Africa, and they say, Joshua. And then I would meet people from the Middle East, and they would say, Yeshua, more like the Baptist preachers from Galveston and Houston area. So my name is what they would even say. My grandmother would call me, and she'd say, Lord. And my dad, of course, said, Joshua. And of course, my last name is Sam. So I start to say, because everybody says, you have 3 last names, man. What's up with that? You know, Josh, do I call you Josh, or do I call you Sam? So yes, you can call me my real name, which is Joshua. I'm from Houston, Texas, the same place, the birthplace. Well, he's actually born in North Carolina, but the hometown and my birthplace of Houston, Texas. The same birthplace or the hometown of the former and past George Floyd, who just lost his life on Memorial Day this year, 2020. I am the son, also earthbound by Kelton and Dee Sams. Kelton, my father, and Dee, my mother. My mother is actually a black woman. My father's a black man. My mother has German roots. Her actual name is Anditra, which is a German name. And my father has French roots, Creole, and roots from Haiti. His name is Kelton. So Kelton and Anditra, black German roots and French roots, met in Houston, Texas. My mother is from here. My father is from Galveston. I'm also quite apparently, unapologetically, unabashedly a young, middle-aged man of color. You could say black, we could say African American, whatever one chooses to whatever word one chooses to use in their vernacular. I am of the roots of slavery in this country, or the descendant of ancestors in this country who were slaves, or at the very most, marginalized, right? Because many of the family members on my father's side came from Haiti, and they were free individuals. They were business owners, they were merchants, they were builders. So they came from Haiti with skills and with treasures, and they set up shop in Opelousas, Louisiana. That's a whole nother story when you talk about Louisiana and the antebellum Jim Crow era of what happened to many men of color in the South. But I am also, again, a man of color in the South with a biblical name, a Welsh name, and a Hebrew name. And I am, as what I said before, actually I will look in the camera and say that I am the Son of God, Lord Yeshua Sams of the Samuel line. And what better place to be born and raised than in the Lone Star State? There's a reason we have the Lone Star State, because the sun is definitely going to shine on the place in which the resurrection or the second coming shall unfold. We call this place Space City. It's been dubbed Space City, one of the 8th wonders of the world, right? It sits along the 29th parallel of the world, right, degrees-wise. Again, I just told you a human legend, a hero, in that of the personage of Mr. George Floyd in the 3rd Ward, right? The 3rd Ward of what will be soon probably the 3rd largest city in this country, which is the most diverse city. Our city in Houston, my hometown, reflects that of Mesopotamia, of Mecca, of Samaria, of Egypt and Cairo, of all of the great, of Rome, back when the great Silk Road leading from Rome to Asia. Houston represents all those cultures. And so when I speak, I want to speak very, very candidly, very directly of my birthright in this seat. We know that in Houston, if you can't find anything else, you can find a church. There's over 5,000, 6,000 churches in my city. We're known in Texas as the Bible Belt, right? We've, in this city, orchestrated with the use of black people that we know from the movie Hidden Figures, an institution known as NASA, right? Mm-hmm. Which plays again on the Space City dub, right? They've been looking for me for 2,000 years. Ever since I was crucified on a cross, and yes, I appeared for 42 days after that and revealed myself to others as I am now. Trust and believe, anyone who's watching or listening, that this is not a helmship that I called upon myself, that I named myself at birth, that I am a part of a movement that is bigger than me. You must know that I have questioned myself since birth of why am I different, of what makes me set apart from other people. Why do I have a love to heal things that are broken or to fix things that are wrong in society? Why am I feeling like I am the scapegoat, the black sheep, the ostracized one, the separated one, the marginalized one, the prejudiced one, the victim? As many black people and black men and men of color and women of color can use their own name in replace of my name and say, yes, I've been victimized, I've been injustified. What makes you different than me? And really, there's no difference than me and you. If there's anything that was said in the past, was said now and still current and still has valid weight, which is you two shall not only see the works that I have done, but you shall do greater works. And this is not a act or a play. These aren't lines that are rehearsed or any of that. This is my life. I am an educated, or what people would consider an educated individual who had privilege to be educated in some of the world's top learning institutions of higher learning. But when you say that, you have to take it a step further, that I started college at 13, 14 years old. As a matter of fact, at the age of 40 years old, I'm still registered in school. Due to COVID, it's maybe a little bit different. We're all waiting with what everything is going to look like in the future. We'll get to that in a second. But I'm also still registered in school at Rice University. Gone to Duke. Gone to the University of Texas, Austin, Dallas. Recently, Texas Southern University. I can go down a list of others. University of Guanajuato, Universidade Federal de Bahia, the Brazil. Certified, not just go to graduate top of his class. Since 14 years old, San Jack. And even I have still been marginalized, oppressed. You say, how would someone recognize a pearl if they saw one? Would it be just a bead? Like the beads that the Europeans sold and traded to the Indians when they came to the quote-unquote New World? What was originally supposed to be named Columbia after its so-called founder Columbus. But they knew people would eventually know that they didn't discover this place. But they discovered a pearl.
You know, I got a question for you.
Sure.
So, most humans, you know, we live life. Some of us may make it to our teens, others 20s. Some make it to 100 and something. And no matter how old you become, many of us never know our purpose. Some of us may know the direction, our life, like where we're headed, but we don't ultimately know what's going to ultimately unfold from our purpose. Do you know your purpose?
Absolutely.
What is that?
To save mankind.
And how will you do that?
To demonstrate love, peace, harmony, acceptance, and to give the answers to solutions. But this, we find today, the solutions of mass pandemics, Ebola, SARS, Zika, now COVID-19, and now is probably one of the largest public health crises in the world, which is white supremacy and white privilege, affluenza, okay? These titles of these words are spiritual emanations, spiritual manifestations in the world through mankind, right? We know that spirits can impose an animal or embed themselves in nature, but we also know that we drink spirits, we eat nature. Even the vegetarians who say they don't eat meat, they eat plants, and it all is coming from the earth which God created, right? And so we all have the same needs in life. Who we gonna love? Who do we trust? Who do we want to work with or work for, right? And so to answer that question, what is my purpose? I am the bridge between good and evil. I've gone to Hades not once, not twice, but I've had many rebirths. And one thing that I know is most people are fearful of death. But it's already written in the great book, in the great books of the world, for those who believe, that time is everlasting. Time is continuous. Time recycles. So time after time after time, God has sent prophets. God has sent his children. God has sent messiahs, messianic figures. Even Jesus' cousin, John, was ostracized and lived in the desert and ate locusts. But he said, this person that you see is the pearl. He is the prophecy fulfilled. This person is the truth. John only walked with Jesus about 6 months before Jesus started his ministry. I've walked with you, Brother RoShawn, more than 3 years. And I've been nothing but behind justice, nothing but supporting your causes, nothing but empowering others, right? Others to bridge gaps of love, of decriminalization, falsification, false arrests, right? Predatory lending, right? Biases, profiling, right? Police brutality. Let's get to the police brutality. I asked you a question, and this is something that's going to... Let me ask you a question, and it's going to dovetail back to who I am. Do you understand why so many black men are being killed in this country at the hands of cops and officers? Unarmed and unwielding any weapon most of the time.
Well, if you ask me, it goes all the way back before slavery. People look at people with brown skin or dark skin as beneath the earth, the scum of the earth, less than nothing. Mm-hmm. So everyone always finds somebody to victimize and, tear down because of their own internal problems. And some people just have the keys that hold more power than others. However, they get that whether it's just the unity they have amongst people that look like them or whatever, but we haven't been able to escape the bottom of the totem pole, and we've been fighting since and being victimized since, and people just continuously outsmart us and keep us divided to where we can't overcome a lot of obstacles.
Well, you remember it was, that's a good answer, Brother RoShawn, but we don't have to go too far in the past, less than 100 years ago, where in this country, the book known as the Holy Bible, a Protestant mechanism to reinforce, right, Christianity, the belief of Christianity onto the slave, right? The slave master allowed churches to house information, because at some point in history, blacks weren't allowed to read, right? But churches were the first institutions of learning really in Black America, because they had the Bible, right? And so they could teach from the Bible. Someone in there knew the Bible, either whether it was told to them from our stories from when we were in another place and time, or whether it was from someone who was educated and had the ability to read. Okay. I say all that to say that I asked you how and why is it that so many innocent black men or men of color in this country are being victimized by the gun or just brutally attacked and beaten or killed at the hands of the law? And the answer to that question is because they know that such a time as this has come, that dreadful day which was promised 2,000 years would occur. Now, you don't have to do any complicated arithmetic to add and divide, subtract, or get to the result of 2020 minus 2,000 years ago. 2020 minus 2,000 gives you roughly around 20, which there was a 20-year gap between the last time I was on this earth showing myself to many and departed from them, and the time that they said AD. The Romans, the Greeks, the Egyptians, everybody had a calendar system that they thought was superior to the other one, right? And so the Aztecs even wanted to chime in on it too. And they thought their calendar year, they were very close actually, because their calendar years, according, if everyone remembers the Mayan calendar, Aztec calendar, it was all ending when? 2017, 2018. They were almost close. They were right there. You don't think that Celtic, Nordic, Scandinavians don't sometimes bend to dark magic? What I mean by that is they don't do tarot, they don't go to fortune tellers or somebody, the psychics, or some crystal ball to tell them the future, and then they tell them and they imperialistic selves that we need to hurry up and get to this new place called the New World or this pearl, because that's where the Magi are seeing the light go over this manger. The three Magi are seeing the light going over this manger. And how many conservatives or evangelicals have said that the United States is that country, that city, that beacon of light, that shining star on a hill? Right? Now, we got all these 50 stars now on our flag, this is our bandera, but yet we only have one lone star. And there's one star that has one seat in the parliament, which was the charterer. They gave the money, funded slavery from the Netherlands. The Netherlandese built ships, the Dutch built ships, purchased by English, where the Lloyd part comes in. They needed a translator. The world's best navigator, the world's best translator. Go look it up, Sir Lloyd. But anyway, my whole point is they came here. Why? Why did they come here? Because remember I told you they were leaning on the craft. They were leaning on exercising divination, right? And seances. And so the king of England at that time would say, you know what? Y'all get out of here. We are going to follow this word of God. We're going to follow this book. Yeah, we changed it up from the original text. I'm getting there and getting ready to answer your question. So the United States of America, the 13 colonies, this free world, this pearl that they were coming to, which was really a pearl, they set up under principles of satanic worship, cannibalism, deception, using disease, pandemic to kill off the natives, knowingly giving and spreading smallpox through beads and blankets. But why? Why that was, shoot, Josh, you're talking about 500-700 years ago. Yeah, that's only a third of the time of the 2000 that I'm talking about, because people know it's got to be over here. We've searched all over here, and they get here, and they have pyramids over here too. Wow. So you mean to tell me they have pyramids in the New World, in Central America, in Mexico, in America, in Brazil, and all these places, just like they did in Egypt? Really? How did that happen? Because again, time is infinite. Space is not, but time is. And just like the peoples of the world were praying, just like the slaves who were captured by the conquistadors, which we call Mexicans, El Salvadoranians, they too are just coming from up underneath this oppression as slaves by the Spanish, Europeans. Many of them don't consider themselves white. They get offended. Like I get offended when people call me black. I'm not black. I'm either other or God's children, God's child, or, because I'm not from Africa. If anything, my lineage will detect that I am from the lineage of Solomon and of King David, of Abraham, my father Abraham, Abba, father Abraham, from the house of Judah, from the Lord, from the house of the Lord I am. And so the reason why we are getting massacred in this country is because there is suicide, which they try to get into our minds and plug in drugs in our bodies and try to get us to think off or to fix things that aren't wrong, to make us think we're crazy to commit suicide. Or veterans who fight for this country, real warriors who've been to war, who may have PTSD and flashback. They give them pharmaceuticals. They go off. Maybe some of them kill themselves, either maybe through opioid addictions or any other pills or fascinations that they might have. Then you have homicide. Southwest Chicago, New Orleans, Houston, Dallas. Homicide capitals of the world, former Sao Paulo, Brazil. Okay? Bed-Stuy at one time, Brooklyn. Okay? Well, that's homicides. And many people against this position of good will say that, well, that's black people killing black people. Or that's brown people killing brown people, right? But the truth of the matter is, who puts those guns in those people's hands? Who put crack in the black community? Why is it in this country, a country set up on satanic values, right? White privilege, but peep gang. Even in the midst of all that, John P. Henson was the first president elected in the 13 colonies. After all of this 1769, 68, we get to Jamestown, Virginia in 1619, right? And 10 years later, after we say this to England, we elect a black man to rule the 13 colony House of Parliament? Wow. Okay, so let's fast forward from that. So they erased that from history, right? And they want you to believe that then Senator, now former President Barack Obama is the first black or melanin president, and that's not true, especially when we know Thomas Jefferson and Sally Ferguson had many children. And it's funny that we're in Ferguson, we fighting in Ferguson, but that was her parental maternal last name. A slave that was once a slave of Thomas Jefferson who had several children by him, okay? I don't even have to tell you about an international liquor that came out of, was it Kentucky, I believe? Jack Daniels that stole Uncle Ernie's drinks because Uncle Ernie made such a good drink. It wasn't julep, it was something else. They called it whiskey. But then they took it from him and they call it bourbon. But now they've obeyed, they've said they've done their wrongs. They stole from him. You know, Coca-Cola can put things in their chemical, they can put chemicals, let's just say Coca-Cola can put chemicals, I don't know what kind of chemicals. Coca-Cola, I mean, Colombia used to be the former name of the United States. Columbia, I mean, District of Columbia. Why would you put the capital of your country in a place called Colombia and let Coca-Cola put whatever ingredients they want in their drinks? But they're going to apologize for that too one day because, you know, not that we really want to steal your recipe like his Uncle Ernie's recipe, like Jack Daniels, because we know people aren't going to work getting drunk, drinking Coca-Cola. But why here first? Why here now? Why Area 51 here? Why Xerox here now? Huh? Why Kodak here? Huh? Why Model T Ford here? Huh? Why mass production here? Why have you been connecting, communicating with aliens, or is it because y'all have more churches? Or y'all practicing more wizardry? Or do all these churches believe in the same thing? Do they all? One thing most of them believe is Yeshua exists and they're looking for him. You know, this isn't a raise your hands up, I can't breathe movement. You know, I really wish people would stop saying, personally, this is my personal opinion, and with all due respect to anyone who's lost their lives due to any type of police brutality or anything that goes contrary to what God's word says, murder is murder, and that's wrong according to God. But the hand-raising movement was around during Moses, where God spoke to Moses and said, Moses, whenever we go to war, whenever we have battle, you raise your hands and you pray to me and you ask me to intervene on your behalf, and I will send you the angels and I will send my spirit to be poured down on the battlefield in your favor. So as long as Moses, the leader of God's people, lifted his hands up, black people or God's people or people of color or people with melanin or those original people you talked about on the earth had God's favor. His hands came down, they started losing. His hands went up, they started winning. To where he got so tired, he commanded men in rotations, whether he was asleep or not, to keep his hands up. Now the I can't breathe part, I can't get down with that because God has still life moving and looming always. Like I said, time is continuous, right? So we have to stop saying, I can't breathe, because then your words manifest, right? Out of your mouth proceedeth life and death, right? So if you keep speaking death over life, then you will be consumed by death, right? So chanting that with thousands of people around the world and still not even obeying the science and laws of epidemiology and public health, without masks, without protective gear, right? But why here, why now, why the homicides? Why the suicides? It's because of genocide. Genocide. Ethnically cleansing the group of people who you know you stole from another continent away, who now you have been told through your crystal balls, through your divinations, through your evangelism, for whatever methods, means, or ways, you know that he's here in America somewhere, amongst the diverse Egypt of the day, right? The greatest, most modern country of its time. Not so much anymore, but during his reign, right? They know that the first Messiah, the new coming, the Messiah we thought that was going to bring equality to us, you and I, and our grandparents, was in 2008, when a senator, the same one we talked about, Senator then Barack Obama, out of the ashes of interracialism, out of the ashes of the birther movement, out of the ashes of being only in his 40s, out of the ashes of being the son of an immigrant, out of the ashes of being the son of two parents with 2 doctorate degrees, of having access to education in Harvard amenities. Okay? Because we know that too, being too smart, right? So they knew that the one or the ones would be living today, now. They thought it was President Obama. But they knew that it had to be in that window of 2,000 years. He was born in the 1900s. So was I.
So I got another question for you. Why here and why now?
Because more bridges, more trumpets need to be resounded to alert everyone's attention that I am here. Very unassuming, skinny, quote unquote black guy. Nerdy. It's been foretold. It's already been written. The time has come. I didn't say that in the last days that people would just die in the hundreds of thousands. I didn't say that. It was prophesied. I didn't say in the last days that every knee shall bow and that every tongue shall confess. That's written. I didn't say that. But how interesting is it that everyone all of a sudden is starting to kneel and pray? Now, who are you praying to? What's the purpose of kneeling? In reverence of the King of Kings. This social distancing stuff, it's an earth cleanser. It's a time for families to get together and reflect. But it's also been Passover, guys, for the last 110 days, just in case you didn't know. They wanted you inside because they didn't want you to see the heavens open up. I'm here. I'm your brother. I'm your friend. I'm not your guide. I am sent to teach, to show, to evoke peace. Now, see, there's another level, too, of who I am. See, being here in Space City, when you start shooting rockets up into space, into the universe, into the galaxy, and sending probes and signals and stuff out, you start attracting things back. You start getting answers and replies and intelligent responses back, right? So we do have visitors. Now, I'm not saying I'm a visitor. I'm a human being, but we have visitors on earth.
You know, I want to say something. And I want to rewind back to what you just said. And I want to actually emphasize this. Because you said, I'm not your God. I'm your friend. I'm your brother. And when you rewind back in time and you read the Bible and you look at Jesus, and Jesus had to actually leave his home place to go out, to go and fulfill the prophecies, but yet he wasn't. He was the God, but yet he wasn't. He was people's brother. He was people's son. He was people's friend. He was people's mentor. Like, he was people's person that they can lean on for whatever support they needed.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because, you know, they always said that he spoke in parables, right? He spoke in enough parables to always leave with bushels of money. So much money or so much food that he told all 12 of his disciples to carry it. And he got more disciples because they wanted to carry the money and carry the food too. But it wasn't about the enterprise or the business of the money. Because he didn't get that money from the people who really had money in the Sanhedrin court. You know, the Sadducees and the Pharisees and the priests, the high priests and all that stuff. He didn't have them jewels like that, but he had swag, right? He knew how to talk to people. He knew how to have faith in his Lord. See, it's written that Jesus hung out with the least among of us, or the least among these. The thieves, the robbers, the gangsters, the mobsters, the prostitutes, the harlots, the disenfranchised, the maimed, the handicapped, those with disabilities, leprosy. You know, and so this mission is bigger than the unblemished calf, because there is no calf or cow. You see where I'm going with this? That is sacred, more sacred than a human being. We saw the life of George Floyd taken, just like we saw the life of Trayvon Martin, Eric Garner. We see these things, Freddie Gray, Felipe Castile. We see these things. This isn't only evoking PTSD, which needs to be unpacked and reprogrammed also, but this is pure good versus evil. So much so that you have thousands of people in the world, in China, in Belfast, in Melbourne, in Sydney, in Cape Town, in Brazil, everywhere in the world are protesting for black people, black lives in America. Why? Why? You say, why now? Why now? 2020, a term that is used for optometrists to say you have perfect vision, for everyone to see the truth. Now, what is the truth? I met you. The truth is we have been, our human rights, our dignities, our liberties, our freedom as individuals and living things have been taken from us, basically, stripped away, right? Mm-hmm. Even to this day. What does that mean? That means they have done something against God's people, God's children, right? Which means there's retribution for that, right? You can't keep doing bad without having a consequence, or at least an unintended consequence, right? So they know that they had early in the 60s and 70s that they had to take out the black man out of the family. They knew that just like large mammals in the wild in Africa, the elephant, what did they do? They started killing the male elephants to kill off elephants to keep the trunks so they can kill the trunks to get the tusks and sell them, the ivory, right? But they noticed that once they started killing the male elephants or the elder male elephants, the tribes of the tribes of the elephants would just be decimated. They couldn't survive because no one was teaching them how to survive. So they learned that skill, and they applied the same thing in the 60s and 70s and put crack inside of American urban societies where they knew in ghettos and in the communities and shotgun houses. But check this out. Why now? Why here? Why didn't I show up in Israel where they moved Jerusalem to Tel Aviv? Oh, I'm sorry. Jesus was born in Nazareth, not Bethlehem. Why here right now? Join everyone
It's okay.
in saving the United States. I said join everyone in saving the United States. This is the end of part one. If anybody has any questions or any emails you want to get at me, get it at me at thebirdwalker@gmail. That's TheBirdwalker, The Birdwalker. You'll see part two later. Thank you for your listening time.
And I want to add one more side note, actually. Because we could grow up with people. We could watch people their entire life. We can know people for who we know them for, but yet we really don't. You know, like the intended purpose for every individual, you have no idea where the person next to you is going. So when you see somebody next to you, you never know who they may be. So love and cherish everyone like you would want people to love and cherish you.
I want to say something really quick before we go. How can you say you love me in your heart is far from us? Many times your words are very sweet of what, chanting certain things or believing that you're saying certain things, but still your hearts are far from me. And I know that is something hard to believe sometimes, but so many people are taught about how Jesus lived his life, and they have believed and had so much faith their entire life of what they believe in or want him to do or intervene in their life. How would they know him, RoShawn, if they did encounter him? Would he be a black man? Would the spirit of him jump out of me and get inside of you and now you're Jesus? Or the next person that's arrested by officers? You might be arresting the next Jesus? Right?
I think this is when people will have to look at the real definition of faith.
Peace.